What is up, everyone? So today is the official release of the Forgotten Realms books from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons and Dragons, specifically the Heroes in Faerun, which is the player expansion, and the Adventures in Faerun, which is more for the Dungeon Masters. If you ordered those books on D&D Beyond, then you also get the expansions that they have released that is exclusive to D&D Beyond. So the only way to get this is to have either pre-ordered the Forgotten Realms books on D&D Beyond and have a D&D Beyond account. I believe they are probably going to sell these individually as well too. It's just that if you pre-order, then it comes with the bundle. And so the two books, or the two expansions rather, that they dropped today is Astarion's Book of Hunger, which you probably have recognized this photo here. It is the cover of that expansion. And the other one is called Netheril's Fall. Now, I'm very familiar with Astarion. I'm a huge fan of Baldur's Gate 3, as many of you know. Netheril's Fall, I have heard of Netheril. I don't know much about the area or the history, other than it was, it's a powerful magic. I think it disappeared at some point. If you played Baldur's Gate 3, there's a whole story about Karsus and how that whole land came to be, and the troubles that kind of followed after that. When Karsus tried to take over. So, but I am going to kind of do a first look at these expansions, and there's also a third expansion that's supposed to be coming out, I think, next month, if I remember correctly, and it's kind of based in Forgotten Realms. They tied it to Forgotten Realms, but I believe it's specifically like a Magic the Gathering setting that they're tying into the Feywild, that has a connection to Moonsay Isles as well. But we're going to look at the two that they released today, which is Astarion's Book of Hunger and Netheril's Fall. This will be the first time I'm looking through this. I've had a chance to look at a couple of things that people have posted and all that I thought was really interesting. And I'm not going to go through all of the entire expansion for each one. I'm just going to look at the table of contents and then kind of see which one's interesting. If you're in the chat and you want to make a suggestion on something to look at, I'll definitely do that. I'm going to try to avoid the adventure part, so that way I'm not spoiling that part for anybody, but we could take a look at some of the other stuff that's in there as well too. So let me go ahead and switch over, and we're going to look at Astarion's Book of Hunger first. So the tagline for this is "Embrace the seductive darkness of Baldur's Gate with a shadow-kissed expansion full of blood, danger, and intrigue." They know their audience, and they're really leaning into this. I mean, that's what Astarion's known for. That's one of the things that people love about Astarion. Let's start with the credits just to see who worked on this and created this. I think that's really important to make sure to give credit where it's due and to recognize people that have worked on this. And then we'll take a look at some of the things that look interesting here from my perspective. So let's take a look and see who worked on this. So the lead designer is Amanda Hammond. Designers are Ron Lundeen, sorry if I mispronounced that, Stephen Rooney, and Sarah Sherb. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Rules developers, Patrick Renee, lead Mackenzie DeArmas, who I have met her in person. She's fantastic. Ben Petrosor, I think I pronounced your name correctly. I apologize, but I believe I met him at Gen Con as well too, and very nice. Both of those people are very nice. I haven't met Patrick yet, I don't believe. So editors, Adrian, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I'm going to mispronounce this. Adrian Nidi Spaltro, who's the lead. Sadie Lowry, F. Wesley Snyder, Hans Ziegler. Art directors Josh Herman, which the art has been fantastic in all these sources and expansions that they've been releasing since 2024. Graphic designers Tristan Falcone, who's the lead, and Matt Cole. Cover illustrator is Magala Villanueva. I apologize. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly, so I'm very, very sorry about that. Interior illustrators David Astruga, Luca Bancone, Clint Searley, Andrea Piparo, Bromsell, Cynthia Shepard, John Tedrick. Cartographer Mike Schley. He's pretty much a cornerstone of a lot of the maps that you see in Dungeons and Dragons source books. Consultants Samir Joseph and Alyssa Vischer. And producers Rod Hockey, lead. Dan Tovar, who's the lead. Bill Benham, Sierra Brugman, and Vanessa Hoskins. So those are the people that worked on this book. or this expansion rather. So let's go ahead and take a look at the table of contents. So again, this is just an expansion. This is not a full-on book. It's exclusive to D&D Beyond. So if you want this, you have to have a D&D Beyond account and to purchase this in some sort of fashion, whether it was the pre-order for the Forgotten Realms books or I believe you can buy it for $14.99. And there's 3 chapters. There's one on Vampiric character options, which when you look through these, there are some new things. There's some new backgrounds. Dhampir, which did exist already as a species in, I think in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, if I remember correctly, I think is where we had it before. So it's interesting that they have like an updated version on that. Then they have some feats list, which includes origin feats and general feats. And origin feats is really interesting because we got a vampire hunter origin feat that you can use as well too. So that'll be really interesting to see. And then we have some new epic boons as well too. So this is really interesting because right now, just looking through this and just looking at what we got in the Forgotten Realms books in 2024, they are providing a lot of backgrounds and new feats in a lot of their books. So my suspicion is that they're really leaning into that to give people a lot of interesting options, which I think is a great idea. I think what's going to be really interesting is I want to see how many feats exist now with 2024 compared to what we've had in 2014 with just Wizards of the Coast, because I feel like we have a lot of options just looking at this and looking at what we have in the Forgotten Realms books and including the 2024 Player's Handbook. We have a lot of these already. So I'm wondering how many of these we're going to have and if people are going to feel overwhelmed by the time they get around to the next edition here. Chapter 2, Creatures of the Night. So these look like there's going to be the some of these look like they're going to be stat blocks. Khazad-dûr'Zar's family, which is a tie into Astarion Baldur's Gate 3. My guess is that's kind of a description of the family and kind of giving you a context or an understanding of how they operate and how to role play them if you're running this adventure. And then Chapter 3, Adventures with Astarion, which, as I mentioned, I'm not going to go through and ruin that for anybody or spoil that for anyone that's potentially wanting to play that or to run that. But let's go ahead and go with the player's options here. Chapter 1, Vampiric character options. So we'll look at this, and again, the art is very gorgeous here. This looks so cool. I love the red and black. Like, I'm a sucker. Like, those are my 2 favorite like color combinations, red and black, and like especially when it's crimson like that. Really cool, very masquerade-like, what you would imagine. A lot of people, want to have a masquerade or a ball in their campaign, so this is obviously something that they're leaning into. And we have, let me take a closer look here. It may not be that much closer, actually, so let me go back here. But you can tell that, this person is a vampire from the eyes and from the fangs that she has here as well, too. Let's see here, character background. So here are some backgrounds that you can choose that, again, the idea here is connected to Astarion or to the world of vampires in some way. So are suitable for those whose past is intertwined with vampires or the company such creatures tend to keep. All right. So I know I'm going to pronounce this word incorrectly. I'm in my 40s, and there's some words I'm just like, I don't know if I've read this. I don't know if I've ever actually said this out loud. Caruser? This person's ability scores is dexterity, intelligence, and charisma. So those are the 3 ability scores that you can increase or add a bonus to, which you can have a +1 in all 3 of those things, or you select one to have a +2, and then another one with +1, and then the other one is just a 0. One of the things that I have been saying about backgrounds is that I think backgrounds does a great job of giving you something to work with. But I also tell people, don't let it limit you. You can definitely make a custom background. So, for example, this is the thing I say all the time, because at some point I would love to create this character, but I would love to have a barbarian character whose background has been growing up and thought that they were going to study magic as a wizard, but for some reason, they decided to abandon that. Maybe there was a bad tragic accident when they try to cast a spell and they kind of forsworn casting magic from that point, became a barbarian, or they found some sort of secret thing, or they got cursed from magic or something like that, but having some sort of like a magical background, but still go the barbarian path. I don't want to take Sage as a background as is, because Sage is really good for wizards, but I don't want my character to have all the wizardy kind of things. I just want that for the background. And so you can make a custom background to fit the story of your character that you want. So anyways, that being said, every background comes with ability scores you can bump. Feats that comes with an origin feat specifically, because at level 1, everyone gets what's called an origin feat. So you can't just pick any feat. It has to be categorized or tagged as origin feat. Tireless Reveler is a new one that is in this expansion. You gain proficiencies in Deception and Persuasion. You can pick a kind of gaming set that you can have proficiency in as well for your tool proficiency. And then these are the sets of equipment that you can elect to. You can get option A, which comes with dagger, gaming set, fine clothes, glass bottle, mirror, perfume, pouch, tinderbox, and 19 gold pieces, or you can just elect to have 50 gold pieces. So the idea here is that you grew up in adulthood. You grew to adulthood in the beating heart of a large city, such as Baldur's Gate. Obviously, you spent countless evenings in taverns, playhouses, parlors, and gambling dens, savoring all the city had to offer. You're natural at interacting with people to learn their secrets, whether over a high-stakes game or at a high-class soiree. You might have been thrown out of an establishment or 10, but only by people who don't know how to party. Yeah, so just based on that alone, that tells me that this is really good, kind of geared towards the charisma part, but you can definitely lean into the intelligence and dexterity with that as well too. So the Tireless Reveler, let's see if we get a little preview. Now it's just going to take us down to that, so we'll take a look at that here a little bit later. Vampire Devotee. So think of, oh my gosh, I forgot that character's name from What We Do in the Shadows, but that person who's been begging to be turned into a vampire, and they keep saying no to him. That's what I'm kind of getting at with that impression. Vampire Devotee. Ability scores are Strength, Constitution, and Charisma. This is actually a good one for barbarians. Again, I like to focus a little bit on my stuff with barbarian, and those are the 3 that are really good for barbarians. Strength and Constitution, obviously. Charisma, sometimes people will be like, why charisma? I think there's a number of things. One, when you're a barbarian, I think you can be very charismatic because you can be entertaining to people, right? So you can use that to kind of bump your performance score or bonus. Intimidation technically is charisma, although the rule said that if you're trying to intimidate somebody by doing something else and you want to use your strength score or something like that, the DM can allow it. Barbarians also have a feature at some point, I forget which level, but when they're raging, they can use their strength instead of the ability score that skill is associated with as well too. But those 3 right there are really good for this. So it'll be interesting to do a barbarian vampire devotee here. The feat is Vampire's Plaything, so I'm going to have to pay attention to that to see if that helps with barbarians. Skill proficiencies, Persuasion, and Stealth. Tools proficiency, Cook's Utensils. So that would be a fun one to really lean into as well. Because one of the things I think that sometimes we forget is our characters have these tool proficiencies, and sometimes bringing those up into the game and into the character description as well too, I think can really add a level of depth to your characters that we don't think about sometimes. So this is interesting. So the equipment is option A, Cook's Utensils, fine clothes, 2 glass bottles, healer's kit, perfume, lamp oil, 3 flasks of oil, water skin, 19 gold pieces, or 50 gold pieces. You are in service to a vampire or a small group of vampires layering together. The undead drink your blood more times than you can count. You might have served willingly, perhaps with aspirations of one day becoming a vampire yourself. Or you might have been magically charmed and retain only a few muddled memories of your time as a vampire familiar. In either case, your time in the vampire den is over. Hey! Is there an option to play a vampire K-pop rocker who wields a guitar blade and sings mashups of Black Sabbath and hits from the K-pop Demon Hunters? I don't see why not. I think this could be a good one, especially with the charisma ability score that you can have here. You would just pick up make sure you pick up like a level bard or get the performer entertainers feat, things like that. So you can definitely lean into that. I like that idea. So, but yeah, so this looks like you were, with a small group of vampires. Probably again, like I think Guillermo is his name, right? Guillermo kind of vibe is that you hung around and hoping that they turn you into a vampire, or you've been magically charmed and retained over a few muddled memories of your time as a vampire familiar. In either case, your time in the vampire den is over, so you left from that. So interesting, cool. Okay, so again, I'm going to make sure I check out Vampire's Plaything and see how that goes. So next up, and I just want to make sure I am not blocking the screen here. So let me go ahead and, what I'm going to do, because I usually make sure it's in the middle of the screen, I'm going to move my video feed right about there. There you go. All right, Vampire Survivors. Ability scores is Dexterity, Constitution, and Wisdom. This could be a good one for Barbarian if you're wanting to do major bumps into Dexterity and Constitution, if that's something that you want to do. The feat you get is a Vampire Hunter, so this would be a kind of interesting flavor to go with. Skill proficiency is Insight and Religion. Tool proficiency, Woodcarver's Tools. Option A, Woodcarver's Tools. Crowbar, Hooded Lantern, Holy Symbol, Holy Water, Mirror, Oil. You get 3 flasks of that. Tinderbox, Traveler's Clothes, Water Skin, 4 gold pieces, or you can take the 50 gold pieces. You witness or survive a vampire attack. You might have been directly involved in this confrontation. Perhaps you were frozen in terror by what you saw. Regardless, you remain vigilant for monster attacks and pride yourself on being ready for anything. No vampire will catch you or your allies by surprise again. So you're not technically, part of a vampire group like Vampire Devotee and Carouser. You're not really part of a vampire. This is just one that like you may have been a victim to a vampire. It doesn't really say that here. So this one looks like this could have been easily part of the Forgotten Realms book, and maybe they decided to add this in here. But Vampire Devotee assumes that you are probably a vampire, or service to a vampire. Then this one is that you survive a vampire attack, and now you're going to try to hunt them. So this is a good one for if you're doing like a Dark Grim kind of campaign and you want to be a vampire hunter. This is a good background to have for that, if you want to do that. So. And then we got these quotes in here. Astarion Nocturnal Sommelier. The streets at night teem with all the types. The misguided, the oblivious, the depraved. And then there are the drunken louts. The world-weary lovers and the harried survivors. I like to think of each of them as a unique vintage. He would say that. And then we got this artwork here, which, again, very spot on. Very PG-13, so do not show this around with kids around. Mark me down. That's my jam. I got a feeling for that. You kind of it felt like you described a modern day version of Eddie Munson from I said Eddie Munson. Yeah, it's Eddie Munson, right? Eddie from Stranger Things. But every time I'm saying Eddie Munson, now I'm thinking like the Munsters. No, it's Eddie Munster, right? Yeah, so Eddie Munson. All right, so now character species. So this is Dhampir. So this is one that already existed. And now this is an update here. So I'm not going to read the description here. This is basically a vampire for players, and for the most part. Excuse me. They possess vampiric prowess, but cursed with macabre hunger. They thirst for blood, blah, blah, blah. See, creature type is humanoid here. So here's what's interesting. Whether to fight the control of the hunger. Vampirs often rise from encounters with vampires. Some are descendants of a powerful vampire, while others are partially transformed by vampires. That's what it is. Okay, I always forget what Dhampir was exactly. So it's kind of like Blade from the Marvel Comics, right? Because Blade was half human, half vampire in that regard, or was partially transformed by a vampire's bite. So this is a good one if you want to have like a vampire kind of character, but not have all the curses of a vampire necessarily. So this would be a really good one if you want to go into this, and this would be a good combination with vampire hunter. What was the background here? Vampire survivor, actually. So this would be a good species to combine with that in terms of a story. So you're humanoid, you can be small, medium. Your speed is 35 feet. That's a good boost because most characters or most species are 30 feet, so you get an extra 5 feet for that. If you're a barbarian, then that goes up even further when you get to level 5? Yeah, level 5 because you get extra attack and that. It's either level 5 or level 6. So when your speed goes up by an extra 10 feet, so that gives you a whole like range of movement there. And then when you first rage at a certain level, gosh, I'm like spacing all the levels when this stuff happened because it's been a while since I've associated with the levels and everything. But at some point when you rage, you can move an additional half of your movement when you rage for the first time. So at 45 feet, then that would put you at, you can move up to 65 feet in your first turn when you first rage in combat. So that's pretty powerful. You have dark vision within the range of 60 feet. You have spider climb, which is equal to your speed. Again, a good one for barbarians. Even rangers, like there's actually other classes where you get extra movement as well too. When you reach character level 3, you can move up, down, and across vertical surfaces along ceilings while leaving your hands free. Imagine having a barbarian, like you look up and there's like this huge honking barbarian just like staring down at you, hanging from the ceiling. You have resistance to necrotic damage. When you use an unarmed strike and deal damage, you can choose to bite with your fangs. You deal piercing damage equal to 1d4 plus your constitution modifier instead of your normal damage of an unarmed strike. So this is interesting. So this would be, I mean, this can be good for barbarians. It could be good for monks if you decide to do a monk class as well too. Although you're already getting like a D6 for your unarmed strike, so this is a level down. And usually monks don't lean too much into Constitution. Can definitely do that, but barbarians' big scores are usually the physical traits, right? The strength, the Constitution, if you want to increase those hit points, and then the dexterity as well too. So that's something that would be really interesting to see. How people feel about that and how they want to use that. So any terrain too? Yeah, so as long as it's not difficult terrain. So that's how spider climb works, is that when this happens, if it's something that you usually have to climb, then usually climbing, I believe, is costs you 2 feet of movement for every foot of movement that you use. With a climb speed, if you're climbing, if it says that you would climb something, then it wouldn't count as difficult terrain for that, right? Now, it's not like Web Walker where you can walk across web without it being difficult terrain. Like, that's not what that's saying here specifically. So I would have to look at that a little bit closer, though, because I think there's some word interplay and everything as well, too. Like, because spider climb is just more about being able to climb surfaces than it is about, like, going across webs and stuff like that. But I'll have to go back and look at that. So... but yeah, I mean, that's pretty powerful. So like if you want to go up, a wall and try to get like the high ground or get a, better vantage point or something like that, or get away from somebody, you can do that. So going back to Vampiric Bite, in addition, when you deal this damage to a creature that isn't a construct or undead, you can empower yourself in one of the following ways. You can either regain hit points equal to the piercing damage dealt. So this is like, Bite from Baldur's Gate 3. Or you can strengthen, which gives you a bonus to the next ability check or attack roll you make with the next minute. The bonus is equal to the piercing damage dealt. So if you have like a +3 Constitution, then you look at a minimum +4 bonus to your next attack roll that you make, or ability check. It's actually ability check or next attack roll you make. So the very next one. You can empower yourself with this trait a number of times equals to your proficiency bonus, so you can only do this a number of times to your proficiency bonus, so you can't do this every single time. So, but that's Dhampir. Then here are the feats, and there's a lot of feats that they introduce here. So I don't know how just for the sake of time and everything, I don't know if I want to go through all these things, but there are a few I want to go through. Just looking at some of these, I do want to check out. Bloodlust I'm kind of interested in because I know there's something like that in Baldur's Gate 3, like with the vile bloodlust that you can have. I'm going to check out that. The Boon of Misty Escape, Lightbringer, because there's something in there that's interesting. Love Bites, and then I want to look at Tireless Reveler, Vampire Hunter, and Vampire's Plaything that was discussed in the backgrounds here. So, but there are 3 origin feats. So each one of the new backgrounds, we get a brand new origin feat here. So let's go ahead and let's go to Bloodlust. So this is a general feat. You can increase your strength, dexterity, or constitution by 1. When you roll a hit point die to regain hit points, you can treat any roll 1 or 2 as a 3. That's really good. and that's any time as well too. So if you're, you know, having to do a long rest or a short rest or whatever, I'm sorry, not a long rest, but a short rest, or some sort of ability that allows you to roll a hit point die to gain hit points back. And a Sanguine Feast. Once per turn, when you hit a bloody creature that isn't construct or undead with an attack roll, you can expend a hit point die, roll it again, and a number of hit points equal to the number rolled plus your Constitution modifier, or regain a number of hit points. Okay, gotcha. So with attack roll, you can expend. Okay, gotcha. So this is another way that you can get points, basically. So this is just something that you can do to be able to gain back some hit points if you don't have, like, you know, any sort of healing spells. So this is really interesting, and that makes sense too with what they had there. Lightbringer. This is one I want to point out because this is very interesting. Someone have mentioned this today. You increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1. You learn the light spell and can cast without material components. If you already know that, you can learn a different cleric cantrip of your choice. The spell casting ability for this is the ability increased by this feat. Solar luminance. If you cast light, you can have the light be from the spell be sunlight, which goes well with the vibe of vampires, but that's also going to be kind of annoying for dungeon masters if they're like, this is going to be a sunlight cantrip. This is not just going to be light. But you can only use this once per long rest, so it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be kind of a, you know, a card up your sleeve type of move there. Because if you use it early on and then you go up and you're in a pickle, you're not going to be able to use this again. So you have to be pretty cognizant of that. Sun's Healing. As a bonus action, while within sunlight, you can expend one of your hit point dice. Roll the die, regain the number of hit points equals to the roll. Once you use this benefit, you can't do this again. So that's Lightbringer, and then Bloodlust. Okay, yeah, so it's not one of those things where you could technically combine those two things on some level. Well, no, that's a bonus action. Never mind, because that part's a bonus action, and this one says once per turn when you hit a bloody creature. Okay, that makes sense. So, Love Bites. Let's see what this one looks like. You increase ability score of your choice by 1. Enduring Pain. Immediately after you damage a creature with a melee weapon or unarmed strike, you can take a bonus action to give the target the charm condition until the start of your next turn or until you or your allies damage it. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So, interesting. Here's a couple things to think about this. Again, I look at it from a barbarian perspective. If you hit it with a melee weapon, unarmed strike, you can take a bonus action to give the target the charmed condition until the start of your next turn, or until you or your allies damage it. You can only use this once per short rest, but it's not technically a spell, because when you're raging, you can't cast any spells, you can't be concentrating, but it's not saying that you are casting a spell, it's just that you're giving the target a charmed condition. So this is something that you can still use as a barbarian even if you're raging, and it's just something that happens as well too. So again, once per short rest or long rest, so it's not something that you can do indefinitely, but this is a good, you know, ability to have, and it's one that you can use as a barbarian because you're not casting a spell according to how it's written out here. So okay, Vampire Touched, General Feat. This is not the one I was looking at. Let's see here. Misty Escape. This is one I look at. So this is an epic boon feat. So you get this at level 19. You increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1 to a maximum 30. You gain gaseous form. If you drop to 0 hit points but aren't killed outright, you can instead drop to 1 hit point and cast gaseous form without expending a spell slot. No action required. So this is almost like, it's not even a reaction though. It's just something that happens. So again, this is pretty good because this is something that you can just opt in to do, which a lot of epic boons are like that anyways. When you cast a spell this way, you can target only yourself. Your fly speed is 20, and you regain 10 hit points at the start of each of your turns for the spell's duration. The spell casting ability is the ability increased by this feat, which again is intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Once you use this benefit, you can't do so again until you take a long rest. And gaseous form, in case you're not familiar with this, this is what it says here as well too. So this is something that typically you get a fly speed of 10, but you get 20 with this boon feat, and then you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. You're immune to the prone condition. You have advantage on strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws. all that. So this is kind of like a good, you know, get out of jail free card type of situation if you get down to 0 hit points. So that's really good. That's on brand for a vampire. Okay, let me go back to because I skipped over the origin feat. So let's take a look at this. So Tireless Reveler. When an ally you can see within 60 feet of yourself expends its heroic inspiration, you can gain the heroic inspiration if you lack it. So it's like, hey, you inspired yourself and used that. I'm going to be inspired by that. Reeks Magic the Gathering type of stuff going on there. You can use this benefit a number of times equals to your proficiency bonus. Vampire Hunter. So you get, again, what the hell is this word? Adroit Escape? Adroit? I don't know, people. Please tell me how to pronounce this, because I don't know how to do this. You have advantage on checks to escape from non-magical restraints or the grappled condition. Huh, okay. So for Barbarian, I mean, it's that by itself is not that great. I mean, it makes sense for Vampire Hunter and for somebody who might want to play, you know, maybe like a spellcaster that's a Vampire Hunter, or even, you know, somebody that is kind of like a martial type of class that might not have those benefits there. Barbarian, if you're raging and you get a lot of opportunities to rage and you can extend your rage and stuff like that, you could probably just go into rage and bypass that and do that. So Vitality Ward, when you take necrotic damage, you can take a reaction to mitigate the damage. Roll number d6 is equal to your proficiency bonus and add them together. Reduce the necrotic damage you take by this total. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So if you take the Dhampir species and you have this kind of, you know, stacks onto that because you already have resistance, and then you can use your reaction to roll number d6 is equal to your proficiency bonus, which starting out is +2, +3, +2. I think it's +2. Yeah, it's +2 starting out. So you roll 2d6s just at level 1 there. So those are kind of good combinations that have both of those if you want to be a Dhampir and have the Vampire Hunter origin feat, which would, you know, go hand in hand, makes a lot of sense. Vampire's Plaything, which is one of the backgrounds I said that would be really interesting to see what this says. So when you finish a long rest, you can create 1 potion of healing or an antitoxin as long as you have the empty vial or flask. These liquids evaporate when you finish another long rest. Timely retreat. You can take a bonus action to take the dash action or the disengage action. You can use this benefit a number of times equals to your proficiency bonus. And then Vampiric Connection. The DM determines the fate of your former vampire master. While you and your former vampire master are on the same plane of existence, the vampire can communicate with you telepathically. You can choose to allow the vampire to perceive through your senses. So that's interesting. That's like one of the few times we've seen in the origin feat so far with 2024, or any feat rather, where it has it's a connection ability, but it's not one that is immediately beneficial to you. It's a very contextual. I like that. Like, I think it's interesting. I think it does things a little bit different than what we usually get with origin feats. I think that has a lot of opportunities for narrative building in your campaign, as well as roleplay opportunities too. So this would be really cool to have. So Vampire's Plaything, I think for the background, that was the one I was looking at was Vampire Devotee. Yeah. So again, this is one that's pretty interesting because of the ability scores and all that. I don't think it's optimal for Barbarian, but I think it could be very interesting and very it could have a lot of great opportunities for roleplay if you're not worried so much about optimizing for the mechanics part of it, but you're really interested in playing like a certain kind of character and story and all that. So it may not be, hey, I'm not going to have everything that makes sense in terms of a mechanical point of view, but it makes sense as a character point of view. So those are really interesting. I really like those. I think those are for the most part. I like everything that I saw here. I don't think there was a whole lot that I was kind of like, eh. I mean, there was one or two, but for the most part, I liked it. So, okay, let's switch over to Netheril's Fall, and I gotta look up Spider Climb and Web for you as well too, because I know I need to check that out. I'm really bad at remembering because there's sometimes where it's like you would think it does the thing, but it doesn't. I can't remember if when it says like, you know, you can climb with spider walk and all that, if that also means like you can go through web as well too. I don't think it does, but I have to double check and see. So because webbing is a little bit different, right? All right, so Netheril, let's go ahead and take Netheril's Fall rather. Let's go ahead and take a look at the credits and see who worked on this. Amanda Hammond, lead designer, who also did the Astarion's Book of Hunger. Ron Lundeen, David Somerville. Rules developer was Mackenzie DeArmas. Editors was Adrian Ingdi Spaltro, who is the lead. And again, I apologize. I know I mispronounced that badly. Ayla Bondora, Amanda Fretchen, Sadie Lowry, James Wyatt. Art directors Josh Herman. Graphic designers Tristan Falcone and Matt Cole. Cover illustrator is Oliver Bernard, and that is a really cool cover that we have there. That's really, I really like that. That's really captivating. Interior illustrators Luca Bacone, Adam Cook, Alvaro Calvo Escudero, Julian Koch, Alejandro Pacheco, Samuel Perrin, John Tedrick, and Susanna Wuzik. Cartographers Mike Schley. Consultants is Samir Joseph and Alyssa Vischer, and producers are Rob Hockey, Dan Tovar, Bill Benham, Sierra Brugman, and Vanessa Hoskins. So let's go ahead and go back to the table of contents here. And this is one I have not seen anything here yet. I think what I want to do, I was looking through here. So this looks like this is kind of like the history of Netheril. Adventuring in Netheril, and I'm assuming I pronounced this correctly. I could be mispronouncing this, so who knows. Netherese magical anomalies. Ooh, that's really cool. I love environmental effects and stuff like that, so I might want to check that out because I think that'll be a lot of fun. Through the time gates. Okay. And again, hopefully this is not a spoiler, but if you're hoping to play on this or anything like that, like, you know, don't look at this now. So, hey JT, what's up? Okay, Escape from the Past, time travel adventure. So this is going to be a time travel adventure apparently. So that'll be a lot of fun. I feel like we don't think about time travel as a thing. I know, you know, some people don't enjoy time travel, and that's totally fine. I like to have like different kinds of adventures that kind of changes things up a little bit. So this is probably something that you can, like, you know, introduce to your campaign if you want to just run this as a one shot or just a one adventure in your campaign. So, but magic items, I really like what I'm seeing here just by the names alone. So I'm really interested in this. So let's go ahead and take a look at the magic items. And then if we have enough time, I'll look at the environments here as well too. Arcane Battery, uncommon. This smooth oval stone is etched with faintly glowing magical symbols. While holding it, you can take a magic action to touch the battery to one magic item. That magic item normally regains expended charges daily. It immediately gains 1d4 plus 1 expended charges, and the battery loses its magic. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is like a one-time use. I like that, because if it's something that you like use over and over again, that's one of those things where like it boosts the magic item that you can use the expended charge. But this is like a one-time, like let's you know, we're in dire need. Let's like spruce this up a little bit, and then you know, then it's gone after that point. So I like that. That's really interesting. I think that's a cool way to be able to give your party a little bit of a boost if they need that. Brooch of the Elements. This is rare, requires attunement. The central jewel of this butterfly-shaped brooch swirls with multicolored iridescence. The brooch has 3 charges and regains all expended charges daily at dawn. As a reaction, when a creature you can see within 60 feet of you hits a target within an attack roll and deals damage, you can expend 1 charge and change 1 damage type the attack deals to one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder. Let's see. When a creature you can see within 60 feet of you hits a target with an attack roll and deals damage. So this is interesting. I actually like this because here's what it says, the way it's phrased. You can do this when an enemy attacks one of your party members, and if you know that your party member has resistance to fire, cold, lightning, poison, thunder, acid, then you can use a reaction to help them out to give them to change that damage type to that, so that way it reduces the damage if they have resistance to it, or if they have immunity for whatever reason, depending on what level you're at, then you can negate it completely like that, right? And that uses a reaction, and it has 3 charges, so you can do this 3 times a day. If it is, and again, if the way it's worded, if someone on your team hits an enemy with damage, and you know that they are resistant to something, then you can expend this to try to change it to a different kind of damage type to see if it goes through. So I really like this. I think this is really cool. You get 3 times a day, and it's a reaction that you can use to your benefit, either against a target or for your party member, which is really cool. Now, as a barbarian, this is not helpful unless you take one of the subclasses, or if you have a species that has resistance to one of these kinds of damage types. But this is still really powerful if you know that there's some sort of benefit if your party member gets attacked and hit by one of those damage types. So, Fork of Eddy Summoning. This is rare. This tiny tuning fork crackles with harmless, multicolored magical energy. As a magic action, you can tap the fork against any object to summon an Eldritch Eddy. Is this a new one for this? Yeah, this is a new monster for this. Let's take a look at this here and see what this looks like. So again, spoilers. Let's see here. When magical energy becomes dangerously unstable, sometimes animates into an Eldritch Eddy, an uncontrolled whirlwind of evocation magic that crackles with fire and lightning. Eldritch Eddies typically arise when magic use is heavy and irresponsible, very much like Netheril, from what I understand, such as near a fanatical mage's sanctum, a workshop that churns out magic items, or a library where undertrained scribes work with spell scrolls. Okay, so this is just like chaotic arcane energy. Oh, that's really cool. So you can conjure this, and you can have like this little buddy help you fight. The Eddy appears in unoccupied space as close to you as possible. It's friendly to you and your allies and obeys your commands. If you fail to command it, the Eddy defends itself against attackers but take no other actions. It takes its turn immediately after you on your initiative count. The Eddy disappears after 1 hour when it dies, or when you dismiss it as a bonus action. The fork can't be used this way again till the next dawn. That's really interesting. As a DM, as long as a player feels comfortable running like 2 characters at once, like sometimes what happens is like somebody's looking up the stat block, trying to figure out what they can do and optimize and all that. But if you look at it ahead of time, you have strategies ahead of time, I think this would be a fun one to have in your pocket to use. So cool. Hat of Vortexes. This is uncommon and requires attunement. 3 charges, regains all of them daily at dawn. You can take a magic action and expend 1 charge while holding the hat to release a magical vortex from it. The vortex fills a 10-foot cube originating from you and lasts 1 hour. While this vortex is present, the area is difficult terrain. You decide a vortex's visual details when you create it. For instance, the vortex might be multicolored or glittery. That is interesting. You get 3 charges, 10-foot cube originating from you. Interesting. Okay. So that basically means that with a cube, you have to be like touching one of its side, basically. But it says originating from you. So you have to be inside of it somehow. So interesting. Yeah. So basically, if someone's going to try to get within, this is a 10-foot cube. If somebody tries to get right next to you, it's going to cost them 10 feet as opposed to 5 for that, is how I'm reading that. So interesting. So this is kind of a nice way. If you want to try to make it a little bit difficult for someone to get to you, you can do this. I honestly don't think there's a whole lot of benefit from that, and I think that's why it's uncommon. It's surprised. I don't think it's unsurprising it requires attunement, but I don't think it's, just on top of my head, I don't think it's going to be that powerful necessarily. But again, that's why I think it's uncommon. So, Mage and Handbell, which is rare. While holding this brass handbell, you take the magic action to ring and summon a Terran Magen, which I'm assuming is another Netheril's. HP 121, it's rare. So, the Magen appears in unoccupied space. you choose within 30 feet of yourself, understands your languages, obeys your commands, takes its turn immediately after your initiative account, disappears after an hour when it dies or when you dismiss it. It can't be used this way again for another 1d6 days. Berserk Magen. Whenever the Magen summoned by this item starts its turn bloodied, roll 1d6. On a 6, the Magen goes Berserk. While Berserk, the Magen no longer obeys your commands, and you can't dismiss it as a bonus action. So this is like, here are the consequences if you pull this up. So this is kind of a good balancing act, I think. Because this is like, we're in desperate need. Hopefully this this doesn't happen. So whenever the Magen summoned by this item starts his turn bloody. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm for some reason I thought it was saying like when you summon it when it's bloodied. And I was like, how does that work? But I misread that. So no creature is near enough for the Magen to move to an attack. The Magen attacks an object. Magen remains berserk until it disappears or until a creature holding the handbell takes an influence action and succeed on a persuasion check to regain control of the Magen. Okay, so you can still try to mitigate that by trying to take control of that again. So, but again, like when it starts its turn bloodied, so you have to figure out a way. Well, then you have to roll a 1d6, so that's what it is. So yeah, so that's a way to it uses an action economy basically for you to do that. Mask of Changed Appearance. A jeweled mask has 3 charges. A mask as a mask action, you can expend one charge. Sorry, let me look at something here. Okay. 1 charge to change your face's appearance. You can't make yourself look like a different person, but you can smooth or deepen your wrinkles, whiten your teeth, or hide or accentuate bags under your eyes. And this is a common item, so that's why it's not like, it seems like it's cosmetic, but those things can be really helpful. So, or perform other minor cosmetic changes. While your appearance is changed, the mask has the invisible condition. Your changed appearance lasts for 1 hour. The mask regains 1d3 expended charges daily at dawn. If you expend the last charge, roll 1d20. On a 1, the mask explodes in a harmless cloud of sweet swelling powder. I think that's supposed to be sweet smelling powder and is destroyed. I mask myself to be younger and hit on some more cute tieflings in the tavern. You would. You're in my game. You would. I know you would. That's exactly what you use this for. So I will probably ban that item for you. No one else. And I'll tell everybody else that they can use it, but they are banned from giving it to you. I'm just kidding. No, but honestly, like this is like the Cloak of Billowing. One of the things I've told people is that Cloak of Billowing is a common magic item. As a bonus action, you can make it flap in the wind magically or mysteriously. As a bonus action. And I tell people that, if you play your cards right and you have a dungeon master that, wants to lean into it, then you could say, I'm using a bonus action to try to, impress people when I'm, doing a rock concert, or, if I'm trying to intimidate somebody, I'm trying to do the Batman look by having the, cloak billow all of a sudden to intimidate them. And then maybe your dungeon master might give them advantage on that check, or might allow you to say, if you don't have proficiency in this skill, you can add your proficiency bonus for this whenever you do that, things like that. And so same thing with this here, even though it's a common item, that can be really helpful in some circumstances that can like maybe like a stealth check or a deception check, where if somebody thinks that you might be somebody else, like, because you use that, you might get advantage on this check, Mythaller bracelet, which again, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly or not. Common item. These 3 small crystal beads made from a decommissioned Mythaller are strung on this leather bracelet. I'm sure somebody's going to be watching this and be like, this guy has no idea how to pronounce anything. And that is true. I don't. I really don't. I will admit that freely. As a magic action, you can pluck 1 bead from the bracelet to gain advantage on strength athletics for 1 minute. Ooh, that's really good. That might be something that I might take as a barbarian to give out to my fellow party members as being a helpful barbarian, or being one of those guys that just be like, I just assume everybody else is bad at strength. So here, take this protein bar to eat to help you out for the next minute. Disappears immediately after it's plucked. Once all the 3 beads have been plucked, the bracelet loses its magic. So it's like it's a consumable item at that point. So, and then last but not least, it'd be cool just to use it like you're a time traveler, get some free stuff with it. See, you're going to be like, how can I exploit this? That'd be like a fun little one-shot type of thing to do. Be like, let's see how well you can do this, like a Marty McFly situation. Mytholic Cloak, rare, requires attunement. This electric blue cloak is studded with Sonin crystals that are shards of a decommissioned Mythaler. The cloak has 10 charges and regains 1d10 expended charges daily at dawn. While wearing this cloak, you can take a bonus action and expend 1 charge to activate the cloak's magic. The magic lasts for 1 minute until you end it early, no action required. While the cloak's magic is active, you gain a fly speed of 30 and can hover. Additionally, once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with an attack roll and deal damage, you can cause a target to take an extra 1d4 radiant damage. If you are aloft when the cloak magic ends, you fall. And how long does it? Well, 1 minute or until you end it. So this would be a good one for a barbarian as well too, because it's a bonus action and it says you're just using a charge to activate it. Again, you're not casting a spell. When you rage, you can't concentrate or cast a spell. This is not casting a spell. This is just you activating the magic. And when you do that, you can fly a speed of 30. You can hover, which means that if something happens and like the ground underneath you, gives way, you're not taking fall damage as long as it's not the end of that minute or something else happens, right? So yeah, this would be a good one for a barbarian actually. So it does require attunement. I don't know if it's something like if it was an option and there wasn't anything else that was available. Like I think it's definitely a beneficial thing. It would be my go-to magic item from barbarians, but there's definitely a benefit for them for using that I think would be a lot of fun too. So awesome. All right, well, that is the Netheril's Fall. So these are the 2 expansion books, or expansions, they're just calling expansions, that they released with Forgotten Realms. Netheril's Fall, and moving it back here, Astarion's Book of Hunger, where you can actually do an adventure that is centered around Astarion. So, well, everybody, thank you very much for joining. Thanks for the chat. This is really interesting. I think it'll be a lot of fun to go through this and see what are some things that you can do running these adventures, but also how you can pull this into other Forgotten Realms-based campaigns and adventures as well, too. So overall, and again, I didn't go do a look through of the entire thing. I just want to do a first impression look, and the things I looked at. I think it's good. I don't see anything really problematic. I think the one thing that I didn't touch base on here as well either, which I meant to do that. So let's take a look at here real quick, is the Lightbringer. Boom, boom, boom. The Lightbringer feat here. I can't remember if I did this. I think I may have done this, but yeah, I remember talking about that. So never mind. Yeah, I did talk about that. So, but yeah, so that one, I know some people had like some, qualms about it. It's just like, well, that's just kind of, going to be more difficult to run vampire adventures and all that, which I totally get and everything. I think overall, I think these are good. I think they've made the right call calling these expansions, because these are things that I don't think really is necessary or feel like I'm missing out on anything if I don't have these things. There are some people that absolutely love these things with like the vampire theme and stuff like that, so I'm sure they might feel like they're missing out. I'm not missing out on this. I think if you're wanting to run something like centered along that, then I think this would be a nice benefit, but I don't think it's necessary or is absolutely a must-have to do this. So I don't think you're missing out on anything if you didn't buy it and you're not interested in the vampire stuff. The Netheril's Fall, that's one that I'm not entirely sure if this is one that would be good for any Forgotten Realms book, or campaign, or anything like that, just because we only looked at the magic items. We didn't look at like anything else with it. I was going to go through the magical anomalies with the environmental effects and stuff like that. I think those things would probably be beneficial. I think that'd be really cool to implement as well too, just based on the idea that I love environmental effects, how the world around you can affect what's happening in the adventure. So I think that could be a good one. But again, there are ways to still do these things without needing to have these expansion packs as well too. So this is something that if you are absolutely just, hammering over wanting to have these things, then yeah, go ahead and go at it. I don't think you're missing out if it's one of those things where you're just like, that's interesting. Or if you're not somebody that's really into running like a vampire or a supernatural monsters kind of campaign, I don't think you're missing out on that. But really cool nonetheless. I think they did a great job. I think this is really fascinating. It was really interesting to see like how I could use this, from a barbarian perspective as well too. So thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and let me know your thoughts. If you're watching this after the live stream, feel free to comment on this, and you know, if you want to ask questions about what else is in here, I'll be more happy to look that up for you, or anything else that you want to just mention and just have a conversation, chat about these 2 expansion packs, I'll be more happy to do that. So thank you all very much. And as always, go reckless or go home. Take care.